Hello, everybody. Welcome to Ryan and Brian Talk Sports. After a week-long hiatus that
Okay.
felt like 3 months, but as always, we're sponsored by Pickett Sports and newly by Props.Cash. And as always, here's Ryan Props.
What's
Ryan,
going
how you
on?
doing? Yeah, no, this is. I feel like I forgot to do the show. It's been at least a fortnight. Actually, we should have waited another week because I like using the word fortnight. But
What's the
uh,
time frame on a fortnight?
it's 2 weeks, I think, right? A fortnight.
Beats the hell out of me.
I
This is
think it's
news. I'm
two
learning something
weeks.
new every day.
Yeah, it's a Fortnite, Fortnite, whatever. It's also a video game if you say it improperly. But
Yeah, there you go. There is
I
that.
mean, it's good to be back. How was your holiday week? I guess you could call it.
So it was good. I was out of town for about 6 days. And in this entirety of 6 days, I saw 10 children, including my own two. So I have six nieces and nephews on one side, two on the other, and then my two kids. So needless to say, my entire family is just riddled with illness right now. So
Oh,
we're
nice.
hanging in. But I'm sure we'll do that again for Christmas. We'll run it back. But overall, I mean, it was a solid time. Ate a fuckload of food. Got drunk before I got sick several times. So it was a good time. How about you?
It was pretty good. It's funny for me is that my, you know, my mom has her Thanksgiving in like the Philadelphia suburbs on Wednesday. My girlfriend's family does their celebration on Thursday, and then my dad has his Thanksgiving over the weekend, either Saturday, Sunday. So
Damn.
that means we go, it's Jersey to PA, back to Jersey, back to PA, which like it's nice because we get to go to all three, but the timing of them is a little unfortunate. So it's just a lot of driving. I had to drive throughout the second half of the. I promised to drive back to my house for PA for my family, and it was the second half of the Ohio State Michigan game, and I totally regretted my decision to have to drive through that game. But overall, it's fun. You take a little bit backpedal. At least I did from sports a little bit. You hang out with your family. It's a good time all around.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you didn't miss much in that game. I'm still blown away by like the lack of safety play by Ohio State. Like, where the fuck were their safeties the
The
whole
first half
game?
was great, and then the second half was just apparently just ran away with it.
Yeah, I mean, I was blown away by that game. I actually really wanted to take Ohio State minus 8.5, and I'm really glad I did because that would have been awful. 45-23. I mean, they were just blowing right past them, and like there was no safety help or cornerbacks to like step up and try to help as soon as they got deep. That was crazy. Yeah, OSU is miserable. Thanks, Quan. How about that?
Someone asked about the World Cup, dude. I can't. I am not the World Cup expert in this world. I
I
don't know.
have very minimal input on that. I've been following. I've seen a lot of nil-nil draws. Well, it seems like scoring's upticked a little bit, but I mean, generally speaking, I don't have much to speak on. I know Germany plays today, which is the team that I kind of unofficially picked to win it all. Basically, just because
Yeah,
they have several of my favorite players on the team. Uh,
my soccer knowledge goes to the fact that I played 1 year of soccer when I was, I think, five. I
Badass.
was
How many goals do
five.
you score?
I didn't
You
really
light
do
it
well.
up?
I played defense. I would like actually tackle people in the not soccer phrase, and I was told by my coach I was a little too aggressive. And then like, by like the next year, I was playing other sports. It didn't go well. I have a soccer trophy. I was on the red team. I was kind of a soccer prodigy,
Red
but
team.
I wanted to let other kids thrive in that sport because I didn't want to be the best in the world. I'll leave those to the Ronaldos and the Messis. I didn't want to be one of those guys.
Yeah. I understand that. But hold on. Actually, now that I get around to reading this, World Cup soccer balls needing to be charged and plugged into an outlet. Is that like a real comment? I don't
I
understand. Is that
it's
facetious?
it's like how they it's the what the VAR or VAR or whatever it's called. They
Yeah.
track how the offsides go. I only know that because the guy I needed to score for USA was offsides, and I was watching it, and I
Um,
closed my laptop, and I was like, you know what, this is stupid because I was doing work like actual because I do work once in a while, and then had like the split screen with the soccer with the USA and is it Timothy Way or Weah or Wee Wee?
way. I don't don't really
yeah.
know. WEAH.
He scored, but they called offside, and like I just like saw the goal and I was like celebrating, and then my friends were like, "Well, that sucks," and I was like, "Wait, what?" Because I looked away from the screen and it was called offsides, and I was pretty mad about it.
Yeah, that is
Um,
pain. That is not a fake comment. They're literally they charge the balls. They contain ultra wideband sensors,
yeah, until they track the
inertial measurement
offsides.
unit sensors to obtain the position of the ball and the granular movement.
Also, I wanna make a little comment here that doesn't go unnoticed. Quan just gifted like 10 subs to our shitty show, which is crazy that
Thanks, Quan.
it's crazy that he tuned in, let alone anybody else ever tries to tune in. But you know, we like to talk about charged soccer balls as much as anybody else, but as you can tell, I'm wearing my Alex Moran jersey because it's more of an NFL
I,
show today.
I couldn't tell. I had no
It
idea who you
is
were
it's
wearing.
Alex Moran, which is awkward because I used to wear this all the time in like college, and some people never saw Blue Mountain State, and they just thought I was wearing a custom made Moran jersey that I made for myself to make myself feel better about myself. Like they were like, "Did you make that?" I'm like, "No, I get my fulfillment in other ways. I don't need to make fake jerseys to make me feel good. Like I'm relevant." But to get to the NFL, we first need to get to NBA. We're gonna try to sweep that under the rug because there is one game today, which is funny that usually these slates are smaller, the TNT slates,
Sure.
but one game is almost unheard of.
Yeah.
Usually it's three or four, and that's fine. It's like okay, it kind of sucks, but it helps you narrow things down. But oh man, one game, and it's the Pistons who have the longest injury report that you can think of.
Yep.
So there's only three props out, and it's for the stars of the league, like the Lucas, the Joel Finney Smiths, like only the guys that are just top tier.
Yeah.
Uh,
That's right. That's right.
uh,
Here,
and
let's
I
pull up
saw
the
that
injury report for Detroit.
it's
It's not
bad.
it's not terrible, but Cade is still out. Nerlens Noel is not on the injury report, so that's good news.
Yeah,
Yeah, and then Jaden
yeah.
Ivey is
Thank God.
questionable.
Yeah, but Ivy's the big one because I think he just changes that team greatly. So I can't even touch that until after I can even see who's in, and you won't know who's in until about what time's the game? Is it eight
It's
thirty?
7.
7? Either way, 7 minutes before tip off, you'll see who's in, who's out, and then you'll have to figure that out. But yeah, this is the props that are out, like I said, are just the three. It's Finney Smith, Dinwiddie, and Luca. And man, I wanted to give Christian Wood a look in this game after he burned me last game,
Yeah.
but he really goes for 4 or 12 or like 26.
He's brutal. He's a really hard guy to get a grasp on. Pretty much any Mavericks player is at this point that isn't Luca because they're just, I guess their usage is just so inconsistent. I mean, we've talked about it before. Like, I mean, I like Luca and I like watching Luca, but I also kind of don't like watching Luca. It's
It's annoying.
20
Not annoying, but it's
it's 22-second long possessions that end in him heaving a shot that goes in, and it's fucking incredible to watch. Don't get me wrong, but like I don't know, they're very slow paced, which leads to low scoring games, which leads to I mean I'm an overs better primarily, so Mavs games just are not my friend, and of course they're on a one game slate. The Mavericks would be the team that plays.
yeah.
However, one thing happened last game. Now I sent it in our NBA chat. I didn't want to post it in my channel because I figured the line would move, but they announced Tim Hardaway into the starting lineup pretty close to the game, and FanDuel hung a 9.5 line for him, and they left it there for a little while. So I posted in the NBA chat. I didn't want to post on my page and make it like an official play or anything, but he hit it really easily. I think he ended up with like 19 or something. He'll be a guy I have my eye on. I mean, he was just absolutely awful off the bench. But I think
Yeah.
that insertion into the starting lineup could kind of give him the boost that he needs. And he definitely delivered. So I don't really see why they wouldn't go back to him. I mean, Reggie Bullock he's my guy. He made
And
more money than anybody, but he's been so terrible this season. I can't even fathom it. So Tim Hardaway
it's
props have my attention, I guess.
it's one of those things too where you want to touch the Mavs props, but you also have, the Jason Kidd effect where you don't know who's starting, which is kind of big. I mean, you think you have a grasp on their starting lineup, and then you see their starting lineup announced for a game, and then
Yeah.
you just throw out the script and you don't know what the hell is going on. I am checking FanDuel. They did add a lot of props. So Tim Hardaway has a
Really?
13 and a half points for Tim
Nice.
Hardaway.
That's not bad.
That's not bad against a Pistons team that could be weak at that position. Uh,
Oh fuck.
it's funny because they have Bogdanovich props, they have Beef Stew and Marvin Bagley props, but once again,
Oh, shit.
I don't feel comfortable taking any of those, not knowing if they have Ivy in or not. Because I mean, if Corey Joseph comes in, you're looking at the next Devin Booker. He's dropping 60, so you don't really want to trust anybody else on that
That's a
team.
fact. That's a
Yeah, I
point.
mean, it is interesting that Luka opened up at 30 and a half after dropping what 44 or 45, whatever it
Yeah, that
was.
game was unbelievable.
So I'm not sure what they're like. I was thinking he was going to open at 34 and a half or 33 and a half, but he opened at 30 and a half. Not sure if that's a sign that he's going under
Blowout
um
potential, maybe.
or then maybe he's just going to take a half off. Like, I don't know. That's a weird line for him. I
Yeah.
did look at his RA. His RA was 17 and a half.
Yep.
That's always an interesting look. But as a guy that bet on Joel Embiid's assists yesterday, doesn't matter how good the player is when Shake Milton's bricking layups from freaking
Hey,
3 feet.
easy on Shake, man. He's
I
been
love
great.
Shake, but I wanted
I
to
saw
have
the video though. I know what you're referring to.
and it's so funny that he ended with 6 assists and everyone's like, "Oh, I wasn't even sweating." And I was like, "Oh, it's probably if you didn't watch the game, you're like, oh, it was an easy cash then." And I was like, "Dude, he had 4 in the first quarter and then just didn't literally like not him, but we didn't the third quarter, the Sixers went 5 minutes to start the quarter without a point. Did you see that?
I wasn't watching. I was
The
watching
second half,
Breaking Bad
we scored our
actually.
first point with like 6:52 on the clock.
Damn.
Like it was a legit 5 minutes where no one even got to the free throw line. Like it was just bad.
I texted Quan
Um,
early yesterday because he had it in his like insomnia parlay and he got it at plus 122. I said is Embiid's assist line the worst line of the year? And I like as of now, obviously I regret not playing it, but like it had to have been the sketchiest line I've seen so
I
far
took
this entire season. Especially,
I took it yesterday at plus 115. So
yeah, that's insane. I there was no reason it should have been there. Although, granted, he ended up with 5. So I mean, obviously, they're project. He did end up with 5, right? No, he got
no,
6.
he got 6, and I thought it was funny because I thought one was going to get taken away. So the one he got that was 5, all my friends were texting me saying like, "Oh, thank God, he got it," and I was like, "Let's hope for another one," because that was a questionable one. Quan can
Yeah,
back me up that I thought the 5th one was going to be taken back. But
I wonder
yeah,
how many
see,
potentially he
Quan said
had.
that Quan also agrees it wasn't an assist. There was there was 3 dribbles on that drive, and I thought they were going to give it to him, but he then the best player, the best sharpshooter in the world, bang bang, Georges Niang. I always say
I
Georges because
like
Kate
no
Scott
Yang.
does not know you're not supposed to say the S, but he hit a clean 3 off a Embiid pass, and all my troubles melted away because of bang bang George Niang.
There you go.
Probably the only rival for Steph Curry for the best 3-point shooter in the league, I would
Hands
think.
down, hands down.
Someone just
Excuse
asked, was it the handoff screen? It was. It was a handoff screen to Shake, and I don't know. It looked pretty rough as an assist. So thank God Bang Bang came in and drilled that 3.
George Yang. It's
Um,
funny. I'm looking at it now, and Embiid had 7 potential assists.
yeah, which is not true. I'm sorry. He had
Yeah,
more. I watched that game. Also, I don't know if you're aware of this. I used to be a Matisse Thybulle truther. I'm over it, dude. He's so bad. He has not gotten any better.
he's regressed. Actually, he actually had a semi promising jump shot in his rookie year.
I
Mostly from
am
3.
going. I'm gonna cut you off. I'm gonna rewatch this game, and I'm gonna send you the clips. I will find them and I'll text them to you. There was a steal. He didn't make the steal, which is usually his thing, but he got a pass from Shake, and he had a transition layup wide open, and just put it too hard off the back glass and missed the layup. And I was like, dude, if you don't have the finesse to do that, please just dunk it. Like, please just flush that down because that's all you can do. And then there was another play where Embiid was at the top of the key. He was bringing up the ball and he passed it to Tease for a three, and he just didn't catch it. Like he just like it just ricocheted and went out of bounds. And Joel Embiid had that classic, just like, dude, like I could just see his frustration where
Yeah.
he was wide open for the three, and then he just damn it, like it
Yeah,
happens. It doesn't happen, Tease. It doesn't happen.
it's so bad. I mean, his shooting splits 32% from the field, 22% from three. He's only one of three, but 33% from the free throw line. All massive regressions. And it's funny because I'm sure you read some like Philly articles, but like if you read about him this summer, they talked about how hard he worked and how improved he was. And I bought it. I was like, all right, let's go, Matisse. Let's see what you got.
Yeah.
You know, this could
So
be a
so
huge piece for us. And somebody in the comments mentioned, remember when he was untouchable in trades? That was like that was an
yeah,
actual thing. Like
yeah,
that was a true like phase of life that the Sixers did not want to trade Matisse Thybulle
yeah.
because he was going to be our next fucking Tony Allen. But
So the point
here we
with
are.
that is that Luka Doncic RA looks good on paper, but you have to trust his teammates. So as of right now, we have no plays for the NBA slate, which is why we're trying to knock this out to get to the NFL, because we have some NFL
Yeah,
plays. Do you have anything to add? I don't. I think this is a game where the Mavs could run away with it. They
yeah, me
almost ran
too.
away with it against the Warriors until the Warriors forgot, maybe until the Warriors remembered they were a good team, but the Pistons are just not that good right now. They're banged up. This could be a game where I might target some unders when I see the lineups because of that potential. But there's
Yeah.
just nothing on this board, and they just added the other props as well. So the only thing I could think about is maybe Marvin Bagley is a guy that I've been targeting for rebounds against this shorter, like this Mavs lineup might be a good look. But I just can't trust anybody on that Mavs team that's not Luka. So I have no plays for this game if you wanted to move on to the bigger discussion, which is Thursday Night Football and the Sunday slate.
Yeah, I mean, my first lean, I guess, before we do move on, my first lean would be Hardaway points, but that's just off the top of my head. You know, I would definitely want to look deeper into it, but when I pulled up the game this morning and realized, fuck, we have one game, I remembered how Hardaway played. I kind of like the potential of him being boosted into the starting lineup can help him kind of get going
A
this
lot of
season.
it's going
So
to come
that
down to
line
making
caught
them
my
play the
eye.
ball,
Detroit's actually a
and
solid
they
team at
have
defending the perimeter, but they're also so banged up. It's kind of hard to say how consistent that will hold like into this game. Um, I think he could be in a good spot. I think he's much needed for Luka in that lineup. He's a big add into that lineup because Bullock is shooting like 20 something percent from three. Grant Hardaway's
Yeah.
not that much better as of now, but you know, we've seen what Hardaway can do. I mean, he's been a 20-point scorer before. I think that's a massive addition into their starting lineup. I think Luka will give him many good looks for the length of the season unless he gets hurt. You know, that would off the top of my head be my favorite prop just to kind of get something out there, but that is not a prop that I've locked in as of this moment.
Someone in the chat also mentioned it, which is would have been my one advice or one lean maybe, is that Luka Doncic double double and win is
I
plus
like that.
100, because I
I
do
like
think he can. I think he can get some boards. It gives you the option to get boards or assist. I wouldn't be surprised if he goes under his points line, only because sometimes those are subtle hints when they lower a line after he drops 40. So I
yeah.
wouldn't be surprised there, but that's a scary one for someone that can just dictate. It's always scary to take it under on points for someone that decides their shots. Like yesterday, Devin Booker had a bad matchup against the Bulls, but he just decided, I'm scoring 50, and he did. So
Yeah.
those guys that dominate the ball are really tough to try to put a handle on. So
Yeah.
only one NBA game. That's why we were trying to, cover it a little bit, have some fun. But the plays we have are in Thursday Night Football and for the Sunday slate. So I'm gonna move on, if it's okay with you, Ryan, to the
Let's go.
Thursday Night Football of the New England Patriots and the Buffalo Bills. So this is, I mean, right off the bat, what's the spread? The spread's 4,
It was
or
three
did
and
it
a
move?
half last I checked.
Oh, did it go? It is 3.5. It was 4.5 at open, so that's fun. The over-under is 43.5. It's Thursday Night Football. Should be closer to 24.5. But it's a divisional
Sure.
game. This is one where I would have gone over. I mean, I would have gone under if I got a better line. 43.5, just with the Bills offense, that's just too scary.
Yeah.
Especially because this is a situation too where I get the love for the Patriots divisional game in Foxborough. Very, you know, tough team in terms of Bill Belichick and how they handle these games, but no one's talking about, but the Bills have a full 7 days of rest. That's not normally the case when you're talking. I mean, they both do, which is
Jeez.
which they both do, but that's where I kind of lean the over in this because I know it's a division, like it's a tough divisional game, which tends to go under. But I think some people are going under solely because it's classic Thursday night football. But this is the one chance we get on Thursday night football where both teams are rested and they're
Yeah, it's
not
true.
playing off 4 days rest. They played on Thanksgiving. They
Yep.
get a full 7 days. So I'm actually excited for this game to be something.
It might not be too bad. I mean, I kind of like this Patriots offense more without Damian Harris for some odd reason. I like just handing the keys to Ramondre. I think he's just good enough to be like full time RB1. And I mean, he's putting up Alvin Kamara like receiving numbers, and I think
But
uh,
before this year, because Kamara is just awful this year. Like,
that's true. That's true.
he's
Yeah.
just bad.
Let's see some comments here. Somebody mentioned Gabe Davis. Gabe Stonehands Davis Day. Quan said every week is Gabe Davis Day. That's true. Big Booty Hole said Kamara's hot dog water. I like that. Uh,
I
I
will
think
say
this.
I know Quan's a big Gabe Davis guy. I'll take the heat for this. I watched him play a lot this year. I think he gets a lot of love. Like I'm not saying he's like I saw someone take a stand that he's not even a top 50 receiver. I'm not going that far. But I feel like he's not as good as some people think. He's been kind of so hit or miss, which is kind of not what you're looking for a guy that you want to be that number 2 for you.
Yeah, I mean yeah, he's all right. He's
See,
nothing.
that's what I mean. If you were talking about before the season, he was like the guy, and now it's like, yeah, he's all right,
He's a
he's all right.
glorified MVS.
Yeah. So, well, do you have a play for this game, Ryan? I'll let you start off with your first play.
I actually am gonna refuse to give my play first, and I'm gonna send it back to you. I do have a play. It's kind of
Oh
an
man,
interesting one. It's a free
reverse
bet
Uno
play.
card.
What's that?
It's a reverse Uno card. I was not expecting
Yeah,
that.
yeah. Keeping you on your toes. It's a free bet like play. I haven't found a prop that I love enough to commit to one unit on. So I found a special that I thought was definitely worth a play. I'm gonna let you talk about yours first. I have a few leans in this play that I could kind of discuss, but floor is yours, my friend.
All right, so I am taking Josh Allen over 42 and a half rush yards. This is a play that I kind of really like. I was hoping for a better number, but I played it twice over the last 5 weeks, 2-0 on it. I hate to go back to it, but I mean, since the bye week, the Bills have the bye week in week 7. And since that bye week in the last 5 games, Josh Allen's over this in 4 of his 5 games. The only game was against the Browns. He didn't run at all. But overall in those 5 games, he's averaging 51 rush yards and he's running the ball 7.5 times a game, which is almost a full carry over his career workload of rushes per game.
It's a good stat.
And yeah, and like I mean, when you're talking about going over, in against the Packers, he had 49. Against the Jets, he had 86. Then he had 84. Then he had like 9,
Yeah,
and then he had 78. So besides that one outlier, there's only one that was close to this line. The rest he's running for 80, 70 yards.
yeah.
And we talk about it a lot with his elbow. The media loves to talk about the elbow injury. He does seem to be off with that elbow. So I think more than ever, he's trying to make plays with his feet. And with that, I just feel he gets a good matchup here. Historically, Bill Belichick has been a man coverage guy. This year, the Patriots are running 46% of their defensive looks as man-to-man coverage. And if you're not familiar, I love to target scrambling quarterbacks against man-to-man coverage because if you think about it, just if you're setting back on a passing play and everyone's glued to their man, it just opens up so many more rushing lanes for a scrambling quarterback than zone because zone people stay home. They mentioned in an interview that the Patriots will try to keep that rushing lanes for Allen minimum and not let him get out of the pocket. Easier said than done. I mean, Josh Allen's he's at the point where you can't say he's Lamar or Justin Fields, but he's up there. I mean, he's the second most efficient scrambler in the league. He doesn't have all the designed runs, but he's always capable of breaking off a 20-yard scramble. And with how well he's been running and the coverage he should see today, I think 42.5 is just too low. I think it should be around 45.5. 45.5 scares me off. 42.5 just feels like a play I have to put in.
Yeah, I like that one. It's something it's definitely one that caught my eye. I may be in this seat talking about this play if you hadn't already locked it in and I didn't see that. I like it, and that kind of leads me into my play, which is, again, it's a game special. I put a free bet on it, and I figured I'd share. It could certainly miss, but I thought the odds were intriguing enough to take my shot here. So if you go to NFL on FanDuel and then you go to weekly specials, it should be the first thing that pops up, and it's fairly easy to find, and it definitely caught my eye. It's Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson to rush for 50 yards or more, and it's plus 350.
Oh, that's interesting. Plus
Now,
350. Okay.
Yeah, it caught my eye. Like I said, Allen for 50 rushing yards right now is plus 124. So if you kind of factor in a plus 124, like a roughly minus 110, you'll get 330 odds. I figure Jackson's line will probably be a little closer to 60 than it will 50, even though in theory Denver's a tough matchup. So I think we're getting really nice odds. I unfortunately don't have a way to prove that as of yet. I don't. Jackson's lines aren't up on FanDuel. That's why I can't really find out how much EV we're getting here. But it's nice. It's a nice special, like you said. I mean, Allen, he's in a pretty good spot here. He's been running a lot more. He's got 86, 84, 78 in 3 of the last 4 games. That one outlier being like the 10-yard game, which is kind of crazy. Jackson, usually his lines are usually in the mid to high 50s. And then he's over in all but 3 games this year. He averages 68.6, which if you round up, that is a lovely 69 rushing yards per game. Now, this is a tough matchup in theory because I think the Broncos have allowed the 3rd least rushing yards to quarterbacks. But let me list off some quarterbacks that they've faced. I'll actually list off every quarterback they've faced. Geno Smith, decent rusher. Davis Mills, Jimmy G, Carr, Matt Ryan, Justin Herbert, pretty decent. Trevor Lawrence, Ryan Tannehill, Carr again, and then Sam Darnold. So they face
some really good scramblers in that list. Long neck Mills.
Long neck Mills.
He looks like a giraffe when he tries to scramble. It looks like a giraffe that was shot in the leg. It's just it's awkward. It looks bad. The good news is if he falls forward, like his limbs are so long, he can maybe get a few yards.
He can carry the ball.
But I'm glad you brought that up because that's my favorite thing to do when capping a spot is that as good as the cheat sheets can be, or as good as stats can be, like, oh, they're the best against this. Sometimes you look at it and it's like, oh, they're the top team against tight ends. And it's like, who have they played? Foster Monroe, you don't, some teams don't even run tight ends really. Like there's just so many factors in that where they could be the best against quarterback rushing, but when you're facing Davis Mills, I mean, a traffic cone can stop him.
Ryan. Well, actually, Matt Michael Vick Ryan had he has like the longest run of the season from a quarterback, doesn't he? Like a 60-yard run. How long is this? Oh, the 39-yard run.
Yeah.
Jeez, that blows my mind. But anyway, you get the point. And like you said, as the guy that makes the cheat sheets, I could not agree more. And I've tried to always implement that knowledge to people asking, hey, how can I use this? Those cheat sheets are just a piece to the puzzle. I think it's a nice head start for your day, but it's not necessarily anything to swear by. And I think this is a really good example. They simply have not faced any quarterbacks. I mean, you could say Trevor Lawrence, Herbert, and Geno are pretty good rushing quarterbacks. But, all in all, the body of work here, they faced guys that don't even think twice about running the ball pretty much all season long. So while they're like the third best against QB rushing yards, they haven't faced anything like Lamar Jackson. So in hindsight, I guess all I'm getting at is I don't think Jackson has too much trouble getting 50 yards here in this matchup. It'll really come down to Josh Allen, who's, like I said, plus 124 for 50 yards, and something he's cleared 3 out of the last 4 games. So if you have a free bet, I definitely think it's worth a shot. If you don't, I mean, I wouldn't mind a half unit on it or 0.25 units, something to spice up the night. Yeah.
I like that. No, that's actually a good special that I'll probably take on with that because I do have free bets to use.
Somebody asked about a Hunter Henry touchdown. I don't believe the Bills have allowed a touchdown to a tight end this season.
The Bills defense has been really strange. I was just looking at that up too with that because I feel like I forget what it is. It might be just like they might have like allowed one at this point.
Let's see here. They do give up a decent amount of receptions. They've allowed 58
They have not allowed a touchdown to tight end.
Yeah, they are one of one, two. They're one of 2 teams that have not allowed a touchdown to tight ends, but tight ends versus the Patriots. That's a difference.
And they're both in the same division.
The Patriots have allowed 50 catches, 503 yards, and 8 touchdowns, which is second most in the league. That's crazy. Actually, good find there, Quan. Shout out Quan.
Yeah, it's supposed to be a Dawson Knox day, but Dawson Knox, I keep thinking he's good, and then I don't know what his role is with that offense. I mean,
I don't have a damn clue.
Yeah, I mean, I might squad ride the Dawson Knox touchdown, but I missed my risk-free bet or whatever last week because he didn't score, and I don't even care about scoring. He only had 2 catches, and they came in like the last 30 seconds of the game. He just does. I think Dawson Knox is really talented, but he acts as like an offensive lineman most of the time, and he runs. If you look at his stats, he actually runs a lot of routes, but he doesn't do much with them. He doesn't get them. His target share is awful.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's worth noting if you like the Dawson Knox touchdown, he did score 3 in 3 games last year, including postseason. He scored in 2 out of 3 and had 2 touchdowns in the postseason against them.
Dawson Knox half the time, or I would say 80% of the time with the Bills, he's like working out. He runs the cardio on the routes, and then he gets like the sled push by his offensive lineman abilities. It's crazy because I think he's really talented. I think he's a really talented tight end, and he just does not really get much use in that offense, which I guess there's a lot of mouths to feed. I don't know, give him a carry or something. I don't know, make him feel special. He signed a big contract to do a lot of not much this year. Look at his contract. Yeah, he just signed the extension to start the year.
No shit. Let's see. I'm so curious. Yeah,
I don't even want to tell you. I want you to see it for yourself because you would think with his contract he would get used a little bit more. And Dawson, yeah, they made a big deal.
3.6 million.
They made a big deal to sign Dawson Knox, and they just I thought he was gonna be like a breakout year for him. And I think 2 weeks ago he had 70 yards, and I was like, oh, this is the Dawson Knox I'm used to seeing. And then last week he had a great matchup and didn't do anything.
Yeah, man. Detroit. But I mean, in his defense, I suppose Allen didn't really do much either. So I mean, he had 253. I guess I can't say he did.
But he ran the ball, which is the important part.
There you go.
So the 2 leans I had in this was I took Dawson. I mean, I took Josh Allen rushing. It is 45.5 on FanDuel. That's where I think the line should be, but you can still get the 42.5 on, other less sharp books. I was looking at Rondell Moore Stevenson, his receiving yards, but I don't know if you've seen this, but his receiving yards have gone from like 29.5 to it's up to 37.5. So that's a no touch spot for me. But like you said, he's come into that Austin Eckler role where he's just that good in the passing game. And Mac Jones hates throwing the ball more than 3 yards, except for last week when I took his under and he decided to be the next Peyton Manning.
Dude, he looked great last week.
He looked so good, and I didn't take his yards. I took his completions, and I was just watching that game, and they abandoned the run right away, and they were just like, let him cook. Like he set a career high last week. He set a career high. the one time I bet Mac Jones under, he sets a career high. So I was like, you know what, let him cook. But I like Stevenson. If you have the guts to touch Dawson Knox, I mean, his 30 plus receiving yards is at, oh no, I mean, he's 31, he's 30 and a half. So you need 31, which means he's going to end at 30. He is 30 and a half receiving yards. If you wanted to touch that, I mean, you could touch that, but he's just such a weird usage. I do lean the Bills in this one, but the good thing about the Bills, if you're touching any of their receiving or Allen rush props, is that they could be up 40 and they still don't like to run the ball much. They really like to run that like RPO, that shotgun looks. So you always have a chance with their receiving overs.
Knox can kick rocks. Yeah, it's funny. I'm looking down reading all this. Knox is just getting absolutely trashed in this chat.
And people will still end up betting on him. I know it for a fact. But
I'm
those are the
so
looks I
tempted.
had.
I mean, he's got a
Yeah.
gold matchup. Not that that always matters, but it's a beautiful
Yeah.
matchup. And you know, he's a $54 million fucking tight end. Yeah, we haven't mentioned the weather once. We haven't mentioned game script once. What are we doing here?
Dude, I was trying to avoid all that kind of talk because weather is a myth and the game script doesn't matter with the Bills because they just like to run the football. I mean, they just like to use Allen's legs and they like to throw the ball 60 times. Even if it's not working, they love it. They love to do that. But yeah, I like I said, I lean the over, which is scary on Thursday night, but I just like getting that full week of rest. I think the Bills are in a good spot despite being on the road. I also have a mini tinfoil hat theory that if a spread is 3.5, I usually lean the minus 3.5 because it's so easy to take the plus 3.5 and they not bait you in, but like they know what they're doing there. The only other thing I would have mentioned in this game is Jakobi Meyers. I think Jakobi Meyers 50.5. He's another guy that can be really hit or miss because unless Mac Jones is playing like a Hall of Fame quarterback, it's really tough for him to get the ball sometimes because I mean he runs routes that are more than 5 yards. That's what it is. But he has a decent connection with Mac Jones. Like the start of the year, they had a really good one. Like they had a good connection. He was doing well, but he's just been turning into that more hit or miss kind of guy.
Yeah, he's a tough guy to predict. One thing I do want to mention for this game, and it might not really be that much of a factor, but I definitely think it's worth knowing if you haven't seen. Tre'Davious White is back. He played 15 snaps last week. He didn't register any stats, so unless you're like specifically searching for Tre'Davious White, you may not know that he's back. I would imagine after 7 days rest, they bring him in for more snaps. I mean, this is a top corner in the league. This is coming off an ACL tear. So we'll probably see a snap count. We'll probably not see the best version of him. But this is one of the premier corners in the league, in my opinion, prior to injury. So it's going to be hard to really assess pregame how his presence will affect the game. But it's just simply worth noting. It's knowledge that I'd want everybody watching to have. He is back for this game, so take that for what you will. He's a great player.
Yeah, so I think we can say we covered that game pretty well. How many plays do you have on the Sunday slate? Just the one? I have two, so I can take the first one. We're gonna move on to some NFL. I turned a leaf yesterday where I'm gonna stop overthinking shit and just start placing things.
Love it.
Just taking people last night. I missed out my DeAndre Ayton top point scorer. Thanks, Devin Booker. But here we are. We are in week what is it? Week 13? Right? 13. Wow. Someone just asked. Okay, if you can get an alt, I'm not even gonna dignify that with a response in the chat because there's never 3 goals in USA soccer, let alone 20. But week 13, we actually have some good games just to kind of preview. There is some good games in this week 13 NFL slate.
I hated last week's slate so bad. So
ugly. It was pretty ugly, but like I think this game is good tonight. Then you have the 2 heavy hitters of Steelers and Falcons. That's gonna be a great game.
That is gonna be good.
The Bears are still alive-ish. No, but in all seriousness, I do think the Commanders and Giants will be a good game. It might be an ugly game, but it's a divisional game where two teams are actually playing well. I do think it'd be interesting to see the Titans and Eagles because I lean Eagles, but I'm a fan. But it's just two different play styles coming together. That should be a fun game. But
Yeah.
most of all, the game I'm excited about is the game I have my first play in: the Dolphins and the Niners. This is I think it's not the game of the week, right? They didn't make
Got to
it.
be Chiefs and Bengals would be the game of the week. I would
Yeah,
imagine.
but it is a fun time. I think these are two teams that are playing well. I don't know if the Niners are super fun to watch. They're a little bit more interesting with Christian McCaffrey, but they still have Jimmy G, which I don't know if you realize this, but Terry Bradshaw apparently loves Jimmy G. Every time I've
Okay.
seen him cut to a Jimmy G highlight, he's like, "My man, Jimmy G," and he says like his favorite quarterback. Super weird guy to love in the league, but whatever.
Okay.
Yeah, the Dolphins
Interesting.
Niners should be. Someone said it should be a Sunday night football game. I agree. This should be a
No, no,
great
no, no,
game.
no, 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 no. Colts are Sunday night. Don't give me
Uh,
that.
all right, yeah, because the Colts have been stellar, Ryan. We get to watch Matt Ryan hobble around the field for another 3 hours.
Against Micah Parsons. Goodness
Yeah.
gracious. Fuck, that'll be a
Um,
fun one. He's gonna
but
fumble 7 times.
Matt Ryan, dude, I don't try to hate on people. Actually, I do. I'm a bit. I drink a lot of Haterade before I watch certain games, and Matt Ryan's a guy I chug Haterade for because I used to love Matt Ryan. But dude, watching him on prime time, it looks like a gimpy gazelle, dude. It looks so bad, and like I feel bad for him, but geez, that was rough to watch him try to escape the pocket. But it's not a Sunday night game, but I do think this should be a fun game. And with Paranova base, I like the Dolphins in this one. I think the Dolphins are playing good football. This would be kind of a good test for them to see if they're actually legit. But I'm going back to the money printing machine. I'm
Good for
taking
you.
Jalen Waddle.
How can we not?
Quan's in there. Jalen Waddle, 66 and a half receiving yards. This reminds me of DeAndre Ayton, like the 2 years ago, where they just wouldn't change the line. Jalen Waddle is again 66 and a half. And if you're not familiar, he's hit this in every single game with Tua as quarterback, except for one. And the one he missed, he had 66.
Yep.
Like he has legitimately crushed this line. And he's averaging, I think, 88 yards per game. I don't have my notes, but I think it's 88 yards per game with Tua as a quarterback.
We'll check.
So it's
Oh,
not even
probably.
like he's close to this line. He's just like he had 85 yards or 80. No, he had 76 or something. He had 70 yards before the end of the first half last week.
Yeah.
I mean, when I took his yards over last week, I thought it was a first half line. Turns out it was a whole game line. Didn't even realize it. But yeah, I know this matchup on paper seems tougher, but there's just so much volume there. I mean, Tua's attempt line is at 34 and a half, despite allowing the 11th fewest passing yards. I mean, the Niners are still allowing about 33 attempts per game. And just the way the Dolphins spread out the field and the way that Tyreek Hill requires so much attention being Tyreek Hill, it just allows Jalen Waddle to just feast. Like he's going off and he's seeing consistent targets from Tua. And also at the same time, if you look at the recent history, like Olave had 62 against the Niners last week, and that was with half a quarterback throwing to him. So they are beatable. Like they've allowed guys to get near this line, especially
Yeah.
number two guys. And for a team like the Dolphins that don't love to run, kind of like how the Bills don't love to run, they just like to air out the football. So there's so many chances
How
for a
could they
guy
not?
he's probably going to see 8 or 9 targets, and to get to 70 yards for a guy like Jalen Waddle, I've always said if it's under 70 at this point, I'm just playing it. I mean,
Yep.
and I'll live with it.
Yep. Somebody mentioned the Jeff Wilson revenge spot. That kind of feeds
Yeah,
into
but Jeff Wilson was also supposed to run for 300 yards last
yeah.
week, so
Yeah.
it's not saying he can't do it, but he looked weird last game. What do you have? 7 yards on 42 carries or something like that? It was something bad.
Something like that. I actually don't remember what he finished with, but I know late late first half, he had 5 yards, so like 5 carries or something like that. He had 13 for 39. I mean, he was definitely, and understandably so. He was one of the bigger plays of the week, across the board for a lot of people. Which again, that is far from criticism. It made all the sense in the world. But to come into San Fran, it's kind of interesting. They were up 30-0 and still throwing the ball. So like they just didn't really. The Dolphins are crazy. Mike McDaniels is
Prayers
crazy.
up. Prayers up to anyone that had the Dolphins over 30.5 total team points. Did you see
My
that?
brother did.
Oh man, they didn't score once. Could you imagine taking your wife out to fancy dinner, knowing that your Maxwell play of over 30.5 hit at halftime, just to get a phone call from your friend that's like, "Oh, what's wrong? I'm celebrating my big win." He's like, they won 30-15." He's like, "Okay, sure." And then you check the score and you're like, "All right, pack it up. We gotta go. We gotta go."
Yeah.
That was crazy. They
What
went
even happened, man? It
scoreless.
went punt, punt, fumble, punt, 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 end of game. Holy shit.
Yeah, they needed 1 point to cash that team total of 30.5 in the
Their
whole
their
half.
their yards in their second half drives were 23, 0, 22, 7, 5, -1, and 13.
I mean, if
Holy shit.
if
I
that
would
isn't a
be
case for
livid.
two, if that isn't the case for Tua MVP, I don't know what is. I'm a Jalen Hurts guy as well, but I mean that's gotta be a plus for Tua, right? They come out against the Texans defense and they can't move the ball without him. I don't know.
At what point was he removed from the game?
Pretty early in the third, if I remember.
Gotcha.
He was removed pretty early. Also, prayers up for whoever had Tua 300 plus yards. He ended at 299.
Yeah.
Like they really just screwed up a lot of people's day. Didn't they not cover? Oh, they did. It was 14 and a half. They did cover. They did cover. Thank God. 15.
Jeez.
That would
A
have
lot of close shit in that game.
yeah, holy hell. But
Golly,
my point is that the Niners, as good as they are defensively, they're definitely a lot better in the run game than the pass game overall. And if they're gonna beat them, they're gonna probably throw the ball 30 sometimes. I just think this is a spot where Waddle can, just keep on waddling.
just keep
Yeah,
doing
just
what
keep
he's been
on.
doing.
He's been insane.
Yeah, he's just phenomenal. Yeah, I don't see why, if he's like you already said it, actually, if he's under 70, just okay, sounds good.
And he,
Uh
like I said, he benefits from not being the number one in scheme
so
fits.
much, so
Yeah.
much, especially in such a pass heavy offense. I mean, man, it's just they've already thrown the ball 400 times this year. They've only run it. I'm sorry, they have 396 passes this year, not counting sacks. So yeah, I guess over 400 to 260 runs. So they're just so pass heavy. And like you said, I mean, what an unbelievable signing that was to bring in Tyreek Hill in Jalen Waddle's benefit. He just gets one on one, and he's so damn
He
fast. He can
cooks.
just cook anybody. He's a great route runner. Yeah, when you mentioned the 299 passing yards, I was about to mention Matt Ryan had 199 passing yards, and a lot of people
Yeah,
paid him
it's
for 200, just like Ginger Snap in the chat. That's
well,
paying
and
big pay.
also I think it was funny because that was the big thing was that he was at 196, converted a fourth and three, and logic would say fourth and three conversion would be 4 yards, and they gave him a 3 yard completion on fourth and three.
Ooh, jeez.
They did
Rough.
not want to round up.
That's brutal. All right, let's see here. All right, so that's you have one more Sunday prop.
I do. If you want to take yours, and I can take mine like a sandwich.
What the fuck?
Like I'll be the bread. I have my two plays. You put yours in the center.
I see. Okay, I'm with you. I'm with you. All right, so I'm gonna, I guess, what you would want to call buy low on King Henry. We've been
Such a
witnessing,
good spot.
yeah, we've been witnessing 99.5 lines for a couple weeks now. And granted, 2 of the past 3 weeks have been down weeks, but that's what a bettor's dream is, if you really think about it, is these down weeks that you don't take them ideally, because it creates lines like this. And he's at 84.5 on DraftKings, -115. Seems like a no-brainer to me. Obviously, sometimes a no-brainer can lose too, but I love this spot. I'm an Eagles fan, so this is betting against my team, but I also know where my team's weakness lies. We talked about it very, very briefly before the show. hold on. It's like the Tone Stamp. Shut up, Tone Stamp. He's talking up his Bengals in the chat. Um, well, we talked very briefly about it before the show, but I felt a couple Thursdays ago when the Texans played the Eagles, they ran Dameon Pierce up the middle, basically 27 times. He had 140 yards, and that kind of exposed us a little bit. That was like the first chink in the armor for the Eagles, especially defensively. Their pass defense has been really sound for the most part, but that was the first time a team really dominated us in a phase of the game. I got to stop saying us. I'm betting a prop against the Eagles, so this fuck the Eagles here.
It works better when you're playing against the team you refer to as us. Usually, when you're trying to speak for the Eagles in your Jalen Hurts shirt, saying "Yeah, we gotta do better," it's a bad look.
Yeah, for sure. But I like the spot. Somebody did mention Jordan Davis can be back. I do. That is definitely worth mentioning. That isn't enough to quite take me off of this play.
Especially because he doesn't play all the snaps already.
Yeah, he doesn't.
I don't know what he's gonna look like.
Yeah, he doesn't play a lot of the snaps. He will, primarily play a lot of running downs, which is pretty much every down for the Texans. But I would imagine he's on a snap count. He's probably a little out of shape. I don't think he's going to play a big enough factor, at least enough to scare me away from this 84.5 line. But anyway, that Texans game, the following week, Howie Roseman goes out, signs Linval Joseph and Ndamukong Suh, which is kind of, it's kind of cool to see, how badly he wants to win, I guess. But it's yielded okay results so far. It's, it hasn't been awful. It hasn't been terrific. So, running backs against the Eagles here. Sorry, pulling it up. I quit out instead of pulling it up. Let's see here.
This makes for great airtime, is to watch you yawn and type into a computer that no one can see.
Thank you. All right. Yeah. Thank you. So, Jonathan Taylor, he crushed the Eagles on the first drive. And then they actually did kind of settle in, and he was held to 84 yards. But then the following week, AJ Dillon actually had a good game. My nemesis, AJ Dillon, had 64 rushing yards on 8 carries. And then they held Aaron Jones in check to 43 yards on 12 carries. But, if you add that up, that's over 100 yards on 20 carries. I think we see a 20 carry game from Henry, no brainer to me. I think they can kind of get some good time possession against us. They have a really, really good run defense. And that's where our strength lies for the most part. So it'll be interesting. I think a lot will fall on Jalen Hurts' arm. And I do trust his arm. I think he's improved tremendously, but I still think they can kind of take hold of the time of possession, which is just Mike Vrabel and Derrick Henry's best friend. But digging into other aspects of this, he's over in 7 of 11. This feels like a 15-yard discount. Obviously, Cincinnati locked them the hell up last week, but without that kind of game, we don't get a line like this. So count me in. Philly allows the 10th most yards per carry in the league. They allow 120 rushing yards per game. So, I mean, this just feels like a smash spot to me. It's 85 yards out of King Henry. You can go ahead and give me that.
Yeah, which is funny because this was the line I was looking at to maybe take. This would have been my third play if I did take one. And Tone Stamp is still going off in the chat about how the Bengals are so good, and he's acting like they didn't. I'll say this, Tone Stamp. Derrick Henry still hit his total yards. He had 80 receiving yards, so he still went over his combined line. So let's not talk about the fact that he did go.
Get out of here.
Man, there's a lot of bad beats last week. Did anyone in the chat have Derrick Henry first touchdown? That was awful.
Oh.
I forget. Who was the guy that caused the fumble? I don't remember.
That was Cam Taylor-Britt.
I was gonna say respect to him. I feel like so many guys don't even attempt to make that final move on Derrick Henry. So I appreciate the fact he went in there and tried to do something.
Well, he is a rookie. He is a rookie, so he's trying to prove himself.
Yeah, It is funny because when I looked at Derrick Henry's lines last night, he was 82.5 for rush yards, and he was 99.5 for total yards. And it's so tough because the total yards seem so good because that's now twice in 2 weeks that he didn't go over his rush yards, but he went over his total yards with that one big F-all receiving screen. But it's still so tough because that's not what Derrick Henry's known for. You know, like he's
Not at
never really been
all.
that guy, but that's 2 weeks in a row. He has this monster screen pass that's just a big middle finger to anyone that needed rush yards from him because he hit the total yards. But it's almost like they know that because they make the total yards 20 yards more than the rush yards. And it's like, dude, he could easily have 0 receiving yards,
For sure.
but he could also have 150. So who
Yeah.
knows at
I
this
mean,
point?
to be honest, I didn't really even consider, when comparing these two lines, rushing yards was a fairly easy decision in my opinion. Um, I was happy to just take rushing yards and not have to worry about receiving at all. I like the discount that we're getting there. So yeah, nice
Yeah,
spot.
I do like the spot a lot. I almost took it. At this point, I might hope because it did move to 84.5. At this point, I might just hope it stays around there and I can get more clarity about Jordan Davis, even though I'm not super worried about it. But this is definitely a spot I like. And it's funny that you bought low on a running back because my last play is I bought low on a running back. I wonder if you can guess who I bought low on, Ryan.
Interesting. Dalvin Cook.
It is not because I fucking hate that guy now. I am
Fair.
taking Saquon Barkley over 71.5 rushing yards.
Yeah.
He has been awful last 2
Awful. I
weeks.
took him 2 weeks ago. That was fun.
He has a total of 17 yards in the last 2 weeks, I'm pretty sure. Something like that. He has been bad, but also the team has been bad. I mean, we talked about how the Giants are kind of fake good in a way. Last
Yeah.
2 weeks, it kind of came out a little bit. They lost to the Lions and they lost to the Cowboys. The Cowboys is more acceptable. Good for you guys. You guys covered. Good teams covered. Congrats, Giants. But I mean, they've abandoned the run early in both those games, being down. This is a game that I think should be closer. I would imagine it's a little bit closer. The spread favors the Manders, by I think 2.5. In a neutral game script, I do like Saquon Barkley in this. And I know it's a tougher matchup because the Commanders have actually been good against the run. But in 5 of the last, so I was looking at this, the Dameon Pierce game, no clue what happened there. No clue what happened with Dameon Pierce against that Washington team. He averaged less than a yard a carry.
Yikes.
But overall, in the last 8 games against the Commanders, 5 of those times, you're seeing guys average 4.5 yards a carry. So last week against the Falcons, they allowed 167 rush yards. The running backs averaged 4.8 yards per carry. Miles Sanders didn't get many carries against them, but he still averaged 4.5 yards a carry. Jonathan Taylor averaged 8.8 yards a carry. And then the Herbert Montgomery combo a few weeks ago, they average about 6 yards a carry. So not saying that this is a great matchup for them, but it's definitely one I think they can beat. And it's one that if I think Barkley gets his normal workload, which is around that 16 to 20 carries, which he hasn't gotten the last 2 weeks, if he gets going early, I just think he's averaging 90 yards a game and his lines have been, he's gotten some 97s. Like he's gotten some really high rushing yards props. And after 2 bad weeks, I just don't know if I see this team or him letting himself do it for the 3rd straight week. Him in terms of his motivation, but also in terms of the team where I think the team needs him to get going. And I don't think they're going to try to abandon him early unless they absolutely have to down 2 or 3 scores.
Yeah, I mean that's a pretty much kind of like a no-brainer in a sense too. It's just such a crazy line. I mean, the production has been so odd. I took him in that Detroit game, and I think he had minus yards after 4 carries, and it was just like, all right, so this one's fucked already. It's like the worst feeling in the world. I think he had 4 for -1 against Detroit to start in like the first quarter.
Yeah, it's bad. Like I
That
don't know what
murdered that
happened
prop
there.
because it may have been in the 90s. I thought he was going to tear him up. So it was humbling to say the least to see a 22-yard performance. But end of the day, it's still Saquon. Game script shouldn't really come into play as far as his workload. Like I could definitely see him getting a fairly normal workload.
This is one where I was debating the total yards. I was debating the total yards, but just getting 71 because even if I like to say the Manders because it pisses people off. Even if the Manders try to like sell out to stop him, I do think the Giants have to find a way to get him in space, whether it's off tackle runs or a pitch play or that wildcat they have. they just gotta figure out some way to get them the ball. And the Washington defense allows the eighth fewest rushing yards per game, but they allow like this. They're middle of the pack in rushing yards per carry. So I think they're beatable in that way. Where if you get the carries and you get the workload, I do think that you can beat them. I looked
Yeah.
at the 18.5 carries. I almost took the carries,
Damn.
but Saquon Barkley is just such a threat to break one for 40 yards at any given point that this yard just seemed way too low for me.
Yep. Yeah, I'm a big fan of that one.
Yeah, so I think this is just a weird line. I was debating not taking it because I wonder if it drops below 70, but with a guy like Barkley, I wouldn't be surprised if it closes closer to 75.5.
Yeah.
So I'm all over Saquon Barkley this week. I think it's a good match for him. It's also a 40 over under, 40.5 over under. So if you get some 3 and outs on both sides, more possessions would be nice. I just think this is one where he can maybe bounce one out for 90, 80 or 100 yards to get back on track.
Yep. No doubt. Very big fan of that. That pretty much I'm out of props. And I believe you are as well. So that would send us nicely into the Pickett segment. So Pickett Popular Plays is a segment we run. It's really cool. You can go onto the app, you hit that little magnifying glass, and then we'll show you the popular players of the day. Today's won't be very original, I guess, for lack of a better term.
Why is that? It's because there's two games, NFL and NBA, and combined.
Might have something to do with it, and NBA props that are basically just now getting released. We can go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Luke is the 9th most popular player today. So pretty obviously, we're going to get some NFL guys here for the popular players. Thursday is just kind of bound to be a low volume NBA day. And that just happens to be the day our show is, but I wouldn't expect many 1-game slates in the future. So
hope
be a little bit more diverse in the future most of the time, but we'll definitely be covering some football players here. So
so we have the 3 most popular players on Pickett for the Pickett Popular Plays. Number 1 is a guy we kind of covered, Rondell Moore Stevenson. And funnily enough, the Ramondre. Sorry, I'm on. Moore. Yeah, well, I was thinking about Rondell Moore, which is funny, but yeah. So we were talking about the Pickett Popular Plays. Number 1 is Stevenson, and we kind of mentioned this. I commend the Pickett users here because the most bet prop for him besides touchdown, because everyone likes to bet touchdowns.
Yeah.
The 31.5 receiving yards. A lot of people got in this 31.5 before the move. It's up to 37.5.
Yeah.
That is a big move, especially for a receiving prop. I mean, that is a large climb from 6 yards.
A running back receiving prop.
Yeah. So that is a big jump. So I commend everyone that was able to get that in. Obviously, there's no Damian Harris tonight. I believe he's still out, right? Yeah, he's definitely out. Because I know there was like weird reports there, but I like the anytime touchdown score given the fact that he's out. But I've just have a weird thing this year where I believe the stat is 49% of minus money touchdown scores are hitting, and if you're paying juice for a touchdown score and you're not even getting 50% of them scoring, it's a little tougher to get behind with how the touchdowns have been this year. Yeah. So maybe if you have that sweat free, that's one thing, but I have a trouble getting behind those minus 120 touchdown scores. I'm not sure if you have any thoughts about that part of the bets going in for him.
Yeah, I mean, Buffalo's defense is solid. I think there's going to be a lot of short possessions for the Pats to kind of get off the field really quickly. I'm sure they'll put together some drives. I think, a lot of their good drives could end in field goals rather than touchdowns. But, I don't mind the touchdown bet. It's just I'm not taking it personally. I don't mind it, but, I'm kind of on the same page with you. If it's a minus odds touchdown, I'm kind of already turned off of that for the most part. Unless you're doing like a parlay, I don't mind parlaying them too bad. for like the DraftKings boost that we get on Sunday. But outright, taking it straight, it's not too much of my style per se. But in a risk free, I think it's a decent spot. I see a lot of people are on his receiving yards, which makes a lot of sense. I mean, we kind of
Yeah,
compared
a
him
lot
to,
of receiving yards.
yeah,
And
we compared him to old school, and by old school I mean last year, Alvin Kamara before he turned into hot dog water.
yeah, hot dog. And a lot of people are on Stevenson's under in rushing yards. So this is a good spot where people are almost trying to predict his usage, where they're taking his under in rushing yards, it's over in receiving yards. And the public, in my thinking, is right in this one. I do think this is a tough matchup for him. And he's just such a good playmaker for that team. They want to get him involved any way possible, which probably is a lot of routes in the flat and the corner routes. So I do like his receiving yards. I personally can't touch it, knowing how much it moved. I know our friend Monotone Football, he got in really early at 31.5. So congrats to
Yeah,
him. It
nice.
moved a lot. I do lean his under in rushing yards. And I think this is one of those ones where they're going to try to find a way to get him the ball in space, which probably means more targets than carries.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I think at this point now that it's moved 6 yards, which is just so drastic especially for a running back, I think I would rather pivot to receptions at that point. Which,
Yeah,
what's 4 or 5 at decent odds? Last I checked, let me see what it is now. It's minus 115. It was plus 100 last night, actually.
yeah. Profit guy during our show took it, so he ruined that line. So
I see. That makes sense. That makes sense.
The guy's the worst.
Yeah, terrible.
But it's still good. I mean, I think volume for some guys is good as well, because if the Bills sell out to stop those passes in the flat, you can still cash on the catches, even if he's not getting the yardage needed.
Yeah, Rondell Moore Stevenson.
Yeah, well, I was thinking about Rondell Moore, and I don't know why I combined the two of the random receiver and the running back. I don't know why I combined them, but it happens.
You did it on purpose. That just seems like a normal Brianism. I almost just let it slide.
I would have let it slide. Listen, it's when you talk this much on a stream, eventually you just black out and forget what you're saying. So I haven't been conscious for one of these in like 4 or 5 weeks.
Yeah.
Which brings us to our second player. Good segue there, Ryan.
Nice.
Second most bet player on Pickett is Josh Allen, which makes me happy. Once again, we were almost split in how they're taking it, where touchdowns always going to be the first because people love betting touchdowns.
Yep.
But second, in a close second race on the Pickett popular plays, is his rushing yards, which is the play I'm on.
Yep.
Which means that I would imagine 2 of those 700 some people took it because of me, because I like to make myself feel validated there. But I do like his rush yards a lot. And obviously, if you like his rush yards, touchdown should be a good sign for that, because he did score last week. He is good in the scramble mode. And honestly, as good as Singletary can be at times, and as good as Moss can be, or as good as Cook can be in that red zone opportunities, Josh Allen is almost their best rushing option in the red zone. He just has he's like the Jalen Hurts, where we have Miles Sanders, they have other running backs, but that shotgun RPO / quarterback draws are just so deadly for teams that have those mobile quarterbacks. So I could see him scoring, especially at plus odds. I think last I checked, it was plus 140. I forget what it was.
Checking DraftKings right now. Give me 1 sec.
Yeah, if you can find that, because I have
170 on DraftKings.
Plus 170. Okay, I didn't want to exit my Pickett app because I didn't want to exit out the popular plays, but I forgot I could and check the best odds. If you're looking for Josh Allen for a touchdown score, his best odds are plus 200 on FanDuel. That's not bad.
Not bad at all.
I mean, you can risk half a unit and walk out with a unit as long as he scores.
Yep.
But yeah, and a little bit on his pass yards, but I definitely think the way to attack Josh Allen in this game with the man coverage I kind of mentioned earlier and his elbow injury would be the rushing yards. And then do you want to cover the last guy, the third most bet player, the guy that we didn't talk about? We talked about Stevenson and we talked about Allen. We have not talked about the third most best player. And if you can't figure it out. It's Stephon Diggs, who is the logical third player here.
Yeah, for sure. A big, a recurrent theme of Patriots games is that Belichick's always been pretty solid at removing the team's best weapon out of the game, which kind of frightens me a little bit here. I mean, Diggs is just so damn good. It's kind of hard to get scared away from Diggs. But if you look back at last year's game log, he was held to 4 catches on 51 yards on 7 targets. He had a bit of more of an explosion later in the year. He had 7 catches on 13 targets for 85 yards and a touchdown. And then in the playoffs, they faced each other. It was a blowout, so they didn't really have to throw as much, but he had 3 catches for 60 yards. It's intriguing. I don't have Diggs props bet currently. I'm kind of torn on this one. His 6.5 receptions is kind of attractive to me because he's going to get the targets. Yards, I'm a little bit more hesitant for some reason. But like I said, that Belichick against the top offensive threat on the opposing team has been something that's been around for a long time, and it stays pretty true to it. I mean, it's hard to beat a Bill Belichick game plan. So it makes me kind of look over to the Gabe Davises and the Isaiah McKenzie.
It's a Stonehand Gabe Davis day.
Stonehand Gabe Davis.
Stonehand.
That's right. Or you can look at the poor guy that got ripped to shreds in our chat earlier.
Dawson Knox.
The $54 million man, Dawson fucking Knox.
Dawson Knox.
So it's Diggs at the end of the day. He's coming off a 15 target game. The game prior, he had 5 targets, which is kind of an outlier. But Davis drops over.
Yeah, if you could bet drops, I would so look for that. Because they all be 0.5. I think that would be just like, so I've always said that I think one of the most fun markets to bet is rushing yards over for a quarterback, because every play you're just like, go. Could you imagine rooting for a drop every time it's thrown? Come on.
That is actually really funny to consider.
That'd be hilarious. But no, Dawson Knox, if you want to take him with these 30.5 receiving yards, it's tempting. Great matchup. I mean, we know he's in shape. We've seen him get his cardio in every single week.
He's the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17th most popular player on Pickett is Dawson Knox. 109 picks for Dawson Knox.
It's all Quan's burner accounts. That's what
right,
it is.
Right.
It's all him. I think I'm 2-1 in my Dawson Knox props, and I just gave up on it because I'm tired of watching games hoping. Like, I think there's guys like him and Robert Tonyan that I think are really talented, and they always get such short lines, and you're like, oh, this is easy. And then you watch the game, you're like, how many targets does Tonyan have? -1? How does that even happen? Like they took one away from him. Like they legit like stared at him and threw it out of bounds rather than giving him a chance. Yeah. But I can buy into Dawson Knox this game. I might put him in my free bet.
Too.
Honestly, I think me buying into it is that if I need to find a +400 sweat free, I would probably just take him 25+ yards, because that's hopefully you can just get 2 catches and then call it a day.
Yeah, I agree. I guess all in all, I didn't really say anything too specific about Diggs. It's Stephon Diggs. It's really hard to go away. I mean, he's got an 83.5 line. I believe he's averaging 100 receiving yards per game. But I guess my ultimate takeaway is I'm gonna fade this one personally. I'm not gonna chase the Diggs props. It's it's a high number. It's a deservedly high number, but
Diggs for 200 yards confirmed. Everybody, that's what that means.
Sure. For sure, 100%. But personally fading. I'm gonna sleep okay tonight if he goes off and I didn't bet it. But I would lose sleep if I bet it and he did get locked down, like star players, I can't say often do versus the Patriots, but they can slow guys down. They don't necessarily lock them down, but I'll sleep fine if I don't take him and he goes crazy, and that's kind of where I stand there.
I think that's good coverage there, and that kind of wraps up our show. We like to end with the Pickett spotlight. Do you want to list off your plays, or do you want me to start?
I only have 2, so I can rattle them off real quick. The only 1 unit play I have as of now is Derrick Henry over 84.5 rushing yards. It's the -115 on DraftKings. Then under weekly specials, under NFL and FanDuel, it should be the first one that pops up. It's Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson to both have 50 plus rushing yards, and that's plus 350. I personally put a free bet on that. That was $50, which is a half unit for me. I don't mind a 0.5 or a 0.25, just kind of depending on your bankroll and how comfortable you are. I definitely think it's going to be a fun one to watch, and I think I definitely think it's worth the bet. I think we're getting some nice value here.
Yeah, it goes in line with my bet, which is Josh Allen over 42.5 rushing yards. Love that spot tonight. And then for looking at the Sunday, I had the Saquon Barkley over 71.5 rushing yards. And then I took the man, Jalen Waddle over 66.5 receiving yards yet again, against the Niners. I think, it's going to be, I think my closing thoughts here is it's a short slate. There's only one NBA game. There's only one NFL game. If you usually have 10 bets in, don't just enjoy the night off. Like not off, but like enjoy like a low-key night. Like don't spend all your day looking at props. They're not gonna seem better. It's not like drunk goggles. If you don't like it right away, you're not gonna like it at happy hour. It's not gonna get better.
Well, you can't say that for sure.
No, it will look better, but I'm just saying the value doesn't change on anything that you're looking at. So in a smaller slate, I like to just kind of, hang out, do something productive, maybe, I don't know, go for a walk. Who knows what you do in your free time. But as always,
bad.
Yeah, as always, it's Ryan and Brian Talk Sports, presented by Pickett Sports and Props.cash. I'm excited to have Props.cash on board. It's a great tool. I've been using it since I was like a little kid, I think.
It feels that way. I mean, we both had, I bought Props.cash when I had 400 followers on Twitter, probably. So I don't.
Wow, so that was what, like 3 weeks ago, right? Yeah. No, but we appreciate everyone that watches. Anyone that chimes in the chat. We appreciate Quan, who just gifted a bunch of subs. He's probably feeling really good after his Tingus Pingus 4 threes, easy cash.
That might have been one of the coolest hits I've ever seen.
Yeah, it pissed me off because I actively root against him. So when I saw that, I was like, "Oh, this guy!" Like,
yeah, that's a shame. For those of you before we go that didn't know, a couple days ago, Quan bet Kyle Kuzma 6 assists and Porzingis 4 threes. I believe it was 36-1 or something like that, and it hit a few minutes into the second quarter to start the game. I believe the first, I could be wrong, but I believe 2 of the first couple baskets were a assisted 3 Porzingis from Kuzma, and then the next one was a Porzingis 3 from Kuzma again. It was quite incredible to watch. A couple minutes into the game, a couple minutes into the second quarter, he hit a 36-1 prop. So just beautiful stuff on that. And that's the kind of play that you'll find in Gold Boys.
And it's also the kind of stuff you can research in Props.cash and compare lines with Pickett Sports. So, wow, that's a good way to tie it in there. But we'll see you guys next week. And
yes, we will.
No, this is always fun to come on here and, talk about random shit for an hour and a half and then waste people's times. So we appreciate everyone that comes in.
Very much so. Thanks, guys.
All right, we'll see you guys next week.